On today's show, we're talking about why you're wrong about trial reels and how to use them strategically.
Welcome to JFDI with the Two Lauras, the weekly show where we support freelance social media managers to create a business they love working in. Over the years, we've covered it all, from marketing tips to business advice, rants about algorithms to sharing behind the scenes of our own business. And on the show today, we're talking about trial reels. They've had a bit of a bad rap so far, but we've had some really interesting results from them lately. So we're diving into how to be strategic with them and sharing our tips and advice so that you can use them for yourself and for your clients. But before we get into it, we would love to hear where you're listening from today. I always listen while I'm walking the dog, so I always picture everyone else doing that as well, but you might not even have a dog. So drop us a DM or tag us in a story and let us know where you are, where you're listening from today. We absolutely love to hear from you. And so let's get on with the show. Let's start by talking about what a trial reel actually is, just in case someone's listening and has never heard of them. How would you explain them?
Well, Instagram, our mate Mozerai, he says in his cardigan that it's a way for creators to test their content before they go out to their followers.
Yep.
So that's it. So it's a good way for you to kind of, rather than you show a reel, this is the theory, whether it actually does that, we'll discuss. But in theory, it's like saying, okay, I've made this reel. Oh, I don't want it to flop and all my followers see it flop and it just not perform. So why don't I go and test it with people who aren't in my world, see what kind of reaction I'll get. And then, depending on what happens, I can share it with my people.
Yeah. Do you know what I think is really interesting about this? We always say, whenever we're talking about anything on Instagram, we always say, remember that they create it for the average user. And I don't feel like this is something for the average user.
No.
I feel like this is for someone, for business, or for like someone who makes their living from creating content.
This is for content creators who make money, or potentially social media marketers as well. Yeah.
Which is interesting, isn't it? Because a lot of the times we don't say that.
No.
We say, just remember, this is like for anyone, and it's not really, however he explains it isn't really relevant to you. And we're probably going to get into it that a lot of the stuff that they say isn't relevant, but I just think it's interesting that they've gone down that route.
It is interesting.
Yeah. And it's easy to do it, isn't it? It's just a toggle. When you're creating your reel, it's just a toggle that you can decide whether or not to make it a reel or a trial reel. But one thing I will say, when you do that, actually there's two things I'm going to warn you about. The first one is, if you always share your reels to Facebook and you do a trial reel, make sure you turn it off. Otherwise, it'll go on Facebook anyway. And the second one, which we only recently discovered, if you are someone like us who has like your Instagram feed embedded in your website, so we have it like along the bottom of our website, there's like our most recent posts. If you have that, trial reels will automatically go onto there if you're sharing videos into that embedded feed. So just be aware of that. So like we've turned off our videos on our preview. We only now show like our carousels and photos, because otherwise you would see loads of trial reels and they would all look exactly the same. So just be aware of that as well.
Yeah. And I think this will make more sense the more we go through this podcast, definitely. Because initially you might be thinking, well, what's the harm in that? Yeah. But when we kind of get into the ways in which we've certainly been testing it, it will make sense that you wouldn't want those all on your website.
Yeah. Exactly.
Okay.
So from a how it works standpoint, the theory behind it is that Instagram will show your reel to people who don't follow you for a certain period of time. You can then see the data after 24 hours and you can then decide, or you can automatically have that reel go out to your existing followers. Now, we're going to talk about whether you should or shouldn't do that in a minute. But that's the theory of how it works. And what I think people don't necessarily think about, although it's really obvious when you do think about it, is that because it's showing it to people who don't already follow you, it's going to be using a specific type of algorithm because it needs to learn who those people are. It already knows about you, knows the type of people who normally engage with you, knows the kind of content that you normally share, knows who you normally engage with. It's learned all of that. But it needs to learn now what this new content is that you're putting out and who to show it to, who those people are. So it's totally ignoring all of your existing followers. It's not necessarily going to find more people like those people, although it could do. but it's going to be using a different part of the algorithm and go and find new people. So it's almost like, and you're not going to like what I'm going to say, you need to retrain it. So you need to like teach it what it is, and we'll get into how you can do that in a bit.
So the reality of that is when you start using trial reels, you'll think, well, this is shit.
Yeah.
And
that's what everyone already thinks, isn't it?
Because that's what happened to us. I was like, oh my God, it's had like 6 views.
Yeah, how pointless.
Like, this is ridiculous. And then we kind of ignored it for a couple of weeks, didn't we? And then we've kind of gone back with a different approach.
Yeah, exactly. And that's what you'll see people complaining about it all over threads, particularly. Oh, trial reels are pointless. But when you put a bit of effort in and you start to understand how to use them well, you'll see that they're not that point. Like some of them, you're like, oh, well, that was a bit crap. But it is quite a good feature once you know how to use it.
Yeah, and then it's good to know that that's a bit crap. So what can I do about it?
Exactly. Yeah.
This is if you are someone who, and you should be, but if you're someone who enjoys the whole testing concept of marketing and putting stuff out there, test, refine, do it again, then I think you'll really, really like this.
Yeah.
If you're not someone who's into testing,
get into testing.
Well, then there's bigger problems, I think.
Yes, totally. And I think that's good because if you run ads, the thing that I find frustrating sometimes about social media, like organic, is because I'm used to running ads, I can quickly test stuff. With organic, it's a much slower process, isn't it? Like you can't share the same reel twice in like 2 hours with different hooks. Whereas like on ads, you can really quickly understand what's working. And this is a really good way to be able to do that with your organic content. So yeah, I definitely think it's worth a try. And we'll talk about how you can do all of that. And we've talked about one of the downsides, that people kind of thinking that it's not working and kind of stopping maybe a bit too early. But there are other downsides, and not necessarily downsides, but like considerations, things that you have to think
things to
about.
Be aware of.
Yeah. And like we've already said numerous times, and you already know, that trial reels are shown to your non-followers. So people who do not know you. Yeah, they've never come across you before. They do not follow you. So your message has to hit. It has to, land with those people in order for it to get traction. And it has to get traction to train the algorithm what you're doing.
So if you were to put out a reel about Chris Hemsworth drinking Diet Coke, that might hit with
a very specific audience.
It might hit with our audience because they know they're two of your greatest loves.
Yeah.
But they are a cold audience might just be, who's this nutter going on about Chris and Diet Coke?
Yeah,
and what's the relevance?
Yeah, and you might have to be like, that would really quickly, maybe not, but theoretically it could quickly like get traction to our followers. But to non-followers it might not. But like you might have to just be a little bit broader with your hook. So like, for example, in a lot of our content, we will say freelance social media managers, very close to the beginning of a video, maybe on the screen, at the top of our caption. So it's very clear who it's for. But when it's going to non-followers, you can still make sure that it's for your target audience, but that specificity, that niche, might need to just come a little bit later.
Well done on saying
I knew you were going to say that. But it just might need to become a little bit later, so you hook people and then you kind of filter out so it's the right people, if that makes sense. So you're not hitting them with it right at the beginning. And also, like, with that in mind, when you're looking at your trial reels and, you're going to be opening that trial reel thing every 5 minutes, has it gone viral yet? Spoiler alert, it probably won't. But if you are doing that, just remember that if it doesn't get those views quickly, the algorithm probably won't be able to feed it out more. It does need to start, like, kind of get traction a little bit quickly. Even if it's only 5 or 6 views, and like ours start out very quite slowly, but they will get views like within a few minutes. The faster they get those initial views, the more they pick up. That's what we found anyway.
Which confirms the idea of having that broader hook is needed.
Totally. Yeah, exactly.
Don't be too narrow in your approach.
Yeah. And I think because you're training the algorithm, it's not one of those things that you can be like, oh, I'm going to do a trial reel today and then not do another one for 2 weeks. Like, you need to feed it. You need to, it's, like a gremlin. You need to give it stuff to keep it alive and get it learning. Don't know why gremlins came into my mind. Do you have to feed a gremlin?
I've never fed a gremlin.
Is it gremlins that you're not allowed to get the wet?
I don't know any gremlins. You have to feed the... It's not a gremlin. See, this is me normally getting things wrong, not you. Don't you feed the beast? You don't feed a gremlin.
What do you do with a gremlin? You don't get it wet. Anyway, tune in again for another entertaining podcast. Right, anyway, let's get off of this topic.
Let us know what we need to be feeding.
Yeah, totally. Feed me. Maybe that's the problem. But anyway, my point is you need to, if you're going to do it, you need to go into it and do it. You need to put a bit of effort in. You can use your old content. You don't have to create loads of new content. You could use old content to train.
A lot of our tests are all just repurposing stuff and tweaking things and certainly using old B-rolls and things. We're not, suddenly going out and creating loads of new stuff, are we?
No. Like, if you've got really good old content that's worked really well, that will help to train the algorithm to show it to new followers. So see if that will, get you some results. And because you need a lot of content, I want you to really pay attention to this tip that we're about to say to you. So if you've zoned out whilst you're walking the dog or whilst you're driving, listen to this.
And listen to it all. Don't just eye roll at the first bit.
No. I don't know which bit they're going to eye roll at now. Okay, fine. Anyway, so you create your trial reel, you write your caption, do not post it, save it as a draft, and then duplicate it 2 or 3 times.
That bit.
Okay? Duplicate it. Duplicate. If you don't duplicate it, you're going to be annoyed at yourself, but you could always just download it. But duplicate it before you post it, because then you've got lots of different versions of that reel that you can test, and it'll make your life much easier.
You're just going to have to accept that you're going to have your phone full of duplicate videos.
Yeah, definitely. Like mine is packed, but it doesn't bother me. It's fine. It's fine. So that is our first big tip. Make sure you duplicate those reels. So shall we talk about how you can be strategic with them, like some of the things that we've done?
Yeah.
Okay. Do you want to start?
Yeah, I would say that when you go into this, you very much have to go with that top of funnel. For a lot of the reasons that we've discussed, you've got to be thinking this is a completely cold audience, and the goal is you're reaching new followers.
Yeah.
So as we've mentioned, you're going to have to be nice and broad in your messaging. So whereas Laura mentioned before, we might include social media managers on the hook of most of our content. In the real trials, we're not doing that. So we're trying to hook people in with different things, which again is testing. We've got to find out what's going to work and what doesn't work. But you still need to find a way that you are going to speak to the right people. So yes, your hook might be broad, but somewhere within that reel, you want it to be very specific to who you're talking to, because otherwise you're just going to end up in a whole messy state with all sorts of people kind of engaging with you. So you do have to be strategic with this, but how you approach it, if you think of that funnel, you are going to use your content to attract a wide top of funnel, but your content needs to squeeze out the right people.
Yeah, definitely. And what you just said about you might get the wrong people engaging with you, don't be disappointed if you don't get anyone engaging with you, because remember, this is a cold audience. They do not know you. They do not trust you. They have no idea who you are. So you may not get any engagement at all, which is fine, because just by them watching however much of your video, you're still trying out if that reel works. You're still teaching the algorithm something so that it can then show it to more people. And they still don't follow you, so they still may see more of those trial reels. So over time, they may then start to trust you and engage with you. But you just have to remember that you do have to build that trust. If someone's going to engage with you publicly, they're not just going to randomly engage. Someone always has to go first.
And that's across the board, isn't
Totally.
it? But I think it just becomes more obvious when you're doing the trial
and you
reels.
think, oh my God, this is really tanking. And it might not be. Just think about how people use social.
But the good thing is, if you're someone who worries that you get paranoid about people seeing your view numbers and all of that, which you shouldn't be. But anyway, if you are one of those people, then trial reels is no one else can see that.
Yeah.
It's just data that you can see. So, the people can't go and check out your feed and go and say, well, blah, blah's only getting blah, blah, because actually they can't see that on your trial reels.
Yeah, definitely. Good point. The other good thing to know is that you can still use ManyChat on trial reels.
Yeah, nice.
So if you are someone who's using ManyChat to get leads, you can still add a trigger word. Now, I would recommend, if you are going to do that, that you set up separate trigger words for your trial reels so you can see where those leads are coming from. And if they are coming from your existing followers or if they're coming from new people via a trial. And like, see, then you can tag them in ManyChat that they've come through, whichever keyword. I think that would be a strategic good move to do. But again, don't expect tons. If you get a couple to start with, great. Over time, you may start to get more, but don't expect loads. But it's better to have it than not have it, I think.
Yeah, patience is important, I think, for this.
Definitely.
So if you then get a trial reel that's performing, you don't just think, oh, great, well, that one's done well, tick, and then choose to push it out if you want to. You want to think, right, what can I do to try and make it better? So similar as if you're ads managers, this is going to be the same kind of concept, but you're going to want to think, right, this is done really well. Let me put it out again. And you've obviously got your duplicates that you've done earlier. Do it again, but this time choose a different audio or choose a different hook, or maybe just the wordings that you use, the capture, like whatever, just to find your key points and test a different element. So the message is still the same, but for example, you're just going to change the audio. And it's quite interesting, isn't it? Because we were doing this the other day, weren't we, where we had, was it the same trial reel?
It's the same video.
One trending audio, one not?
No, they were both trending audios, but they were both very different. We always say, and I don't know where we picked this up from, someone much cleverer than us, test screams, not whispers. So don't test two like really calm trending audios. Test like one really calm one against one like, I don't know, rap music. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, so they're very, very different. Yeah, and when we were doing that test, I messaged Laura and I was like, well, this is crap. They're both doing exactly the same. That just proves that, trending audio doesn't do anything. Well, give it a little while later. It was very clear that actually, depending on what trending audio you use, can have a big difference. So you do have to be patient, which is quite difficult. You just want to see the result.
But also, we don't know. And the next test would be, so say you've gone for you had a quiet one and a loud one, and both were trending, and then the loud one did better, and you could say, well, is that because it's a trending loud music? So the next thing would be to do is to put a loud music that isn't trending and see, but a similar vibe, and see if that works. And that's when you're going to start to understand how much
What we actually did with these audios is we had one sound that is relatively well known at the moment and one that isn't. And it was the one that's relatively well known was the one that performed.
Got traction, yeah.
Yeah, which is good to know. But it did take a while.
Yeah.
Which is interesting.
It is, like, if you're quite a data geeky tester, like all of this stuff, I think you'll find it really interesting, because there are so many different variables of things you can test in content, which I think some people can find, and it can be quite overwhelming, but actually it can be quite really interesting.
Yeah, and I've noticed, I don't know if they're using trial reels, but I've noticed quite a few people who I think are using trial reels and then finding an audio that works and using that audio a lot, like repeatedly.
Oh, really?
Yeah, so they're doing like 5 or 6 videos in a row. They've all got the same audio, which most people would be like, oh, I've got to find new audio.
Yeah.
Which I think is interesting.
Oh, well, let's try that.
Yeah, so we'll try that next. So if you see our videos and they've all got the same music, that's why. I want you to come back into the room now. Pay attention to this, because this might also shock you.
I thought you were talking to me then.
No, Laura, you're currently in the room. It's rare, but you are. So yeah, pay attention to this. Most people will say, or most people will think, that they will test out their reel, and because Instagram then says you can automatically push this out to your followers, or do you want to push this out to your followers, you should therefore push it out to your followers. We would recommend that you don't do that, because that video, that reel, that trial reel has just learned who to show that video to based on people who do not follow you. So therefore, if you then push it out to people who do follow you, it has different learning in its brain. So it's probably not going to work in the same way. So instead, leave that one running. It can carry on going to people who don't follow you, and use the duplicate and put the duplicate out. Make whatever tweaks you need to make based on your testing and put that out to your audience and see how that does. That's what we've been doing.
Yeah, I love that. And I think that's, Yeah, because that's what we did at the right at the start when it was rolled out. It was like, right, this is, you can try your reel, so test it on other people, and then you can roll it out automatically. So obviously you tick that box thinking, yeah, that's going to save me a job. And then you push it out onto your feed, and it pushes out onto your feed further down. So it's on your grid on the day that you posted it as a trial. So if you did the trial on the Monday and then did normal content Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and then on the Friday you decide to push the trial reel out automatically, it will still be 5 posts back or 4 posts back, which can throw people off a little bit. And we definitely, like, whenever we pushed anything out, it totally tanked, didn't we? So we've very quickly learned that wasn't worth doing. So definitely don't have that automatic button on.
But when we have then pushed out the reels that were working as trials, when we've used the duplicate, they've worked really well. Yeah. Which is good to know.
It's a bit more faffy, which, you know, it is. It's a bit more labour intensive. And it's a shame that it's like that, but it's worth doing.
Yeah. And I think it's worth thinking about, like, your level of whether you think that something's done well will be different to our level, will be different to Joe Bloggs' level. Like, when we first started, if we were going to get 50 views on a trial reel, we were like, oh, that's done well. Now we'd be like, oh my God, that's really crap. Do you know what I mean? Because it will learn more and more as it goes along. So just think about, like, what's good for you, and that will change over time. And if you're putting 2 videos out that are the same but have just got one change, it could be like that the difference is 100 views. It could be the difference is 1,000 views, 2,000. You know, it could be that one's got 1 like and one's got 50. You have to decide what is the thing that makes you think that this reel is better than the other one that you were trying. And what makes you think, actually, yes, this is something I could push out to my audience. You have to make those decisions strategically to yourself.
Yeah, 100%. You have to have that A/B testing mentality, don't you? There's no point just pushing loads of content out into the trials that you're not going to make strategic decisions on.
Yeah.
So there has to be that testing. There has to be A and B, at least, of what you're testing against.
There has to be some, as much as you can, some sort of level playing field. So if you're going to test out reels, try and put them both out on the same day, as close together as you can. So they're both going out at the same, like, very close time-wise. Because if you're testing one and you're putting one out in the morning, and then you've made a change and you're putting one out in the evening, you don't know if it's because one's gone out in the morning and one's gone out in the evening. You don't know if that's the thing that's making the difference, or it's what's in the video.
Yeah.
So just one test at a time, just like you would do with ads. Just always, one big test at a time so you can see and understand it.
And remember what that one thing is. So you know when you go back, you know, was I testing here the video? Was I testing the caption? Was I testing the hook? Was it the audio? Because if you like us and have now got trial reels galore, if you don't know what you were testing on each one, that's hard to then learn from the analytics, you know. So do try to be as organised as you can be in terms of what you're actually testing.
Yeah. A good thing that you could test is, like, messaging wise, is it better, like, do you get better results when you share, like, tips and advice, or when you talk about problems, right? So for example, you could test something where the hook is like 5 tips about blah blah blah, and one where it's 5 huge mistakes you're making about blah blah blah, where the blah 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 is the same thing. Like 5 tips about reels, 5 mistakes you're making about reels. Is it the tips that work better, or is it the mistakes? Like, which one is your audience most like, oh my God, I need to know this? I think that's
like
quite,
that.
you know, that's a good thing to test.
Yeah.
And also, like, video visuals. Does it work better if your face is in it or not? Don't take offence if it does. You know, if it's
is it better if you're inside or outside? Is it better if you look cold on with your woolly hat on, or is it better if you're looking nice and warm on a beach?
Yeah, exactly.
Like, the levels of testing is insane, really, when you start to think about it.
Yeah, it could be a bit overwhelming, to be honest.
Yeah, so for some people, they could be like, oh my God, this is not the best thing ever. I'm going to test every variable, because the content you can then create once you've started to notice what's working, what's not working, it really then helps you create quite informative educational content, in theory.
Yeah.
But some people might be like, oh my fucking good God, This sounds like an absolute shit show.
Yeah.
And if that's you, then keep it more basic. Test audio, test visuals, test hook.
Yeah.
And just keep it basic.
Totally.
But if you want to go to town as to whether it's when you're wearing glasses or not wearing glasses, then that's on you. Go for it and let me know.
And also, just think about how you can use this with your clients. When your client's saying to you, I don't like that video, I don't look very good in that video, or I don't like what we've said, this doesn't feel right. You can actually hit them with the data. You can be like, let's test it. We'll show it to non-followers. We'll test it. And then you can be like, look, I told you this one was going to work better. And you can show them the numbers. Like, how satisfying is it when you can do that? So, definitely lean into that, I would say.
I love it. Okay, so I think we've covered quite a lot really, but I am really interested to hear what other people are thinking. Have you done what we just did right at the start, just chucked something out and thought this is shit, and then you've never gone back to it? Are you listening to it thinking, oh my God, this is absolutely incredible. I am going to give the Two Lauras a review and then I'm going to go test everything out.
If you do want to do that, you can do that where you're listening right now in your podcast player, or you can go and leave us a Google review. It's up to you.
Nice. So we just need, we'd be really interested to know what you guys think. Like, we've seen a lot of content, as we said right at the start of the podcast, about everyone saying how shit they are.
Yeah.
But there's not many people getting excited by them. But
no, I went down a massive rabbit hole on TikTok a while ago about them. And the people who are trying them and using them are getting really good results. But 99% of people are not even trying them or have already written them off.
And because they've not figured all this stuff out yet. Yeah. So hopefully we've made it a little bit easier for you to kind of give you a little bit of a plan of attack if you need it. Obviously, you may already be smashing it, and that's fine. And come and tell us what you're learning. If you haven't even gone there yet, but you're up for it, go let us know. We will just want to hear more about what people are finding. So do come and chat with us. We're always on Instagram at the Two Lauras. Come and jump in our DMs or comment on a post or anything you fancy. Write us a letter if you want.
Write us a letter? What is this, 1982? Do we have a PO box number?
My mum said the other day, I'm just going to have to put this in a letter. And I was like, Jesus Christ, put it in an email.
Oh my God. Anyway, let us know.
Yeah, one way or another.
If you're in one of our communities, come and chat there rather than sending us a letter. We would always love to hear your thoughts. Yeah, there we are. That's that then. We will be back same time, same place next week. Maybe with some more trial reel news. Who knows? See you then.
Who knows?
Toodle pip.
Take care. Bye.